Let me ask you something. Have your eyes ever felt different lately? Maybe the print on the page looks just a little fuzzier, the road sign's not quite as sharp, or your eyes feel dry and tired by the end of the day. Here's the part almost no one talks about. 99% of people over 60 have no idea that their eyesight isn't fading. Because of age, it's fading because of what's missing on their plate. That's right. What you eat every single day can be the difference between clear, strong vision or slowly watching the world blur before your eyes. And the craziest part, the secret to protecting your sight isn't found in a pill bottle, a fancy eye cream, or even new glasses. It's hiding in something we've been warned about for decades: fat. For years, fat was the villain. We were told to fear it, to cut it, to live without it. But here's the truth I've learned after 40 years of studying aging and nutrition. Not all fats are bad. In fact, some fats are absolutely vital for keeping your eyes sharp, your brain alert, and your heart strong. These are the fats your body craves as you age, the kind that keep you seeing clearly and feeling alive. So if you're over 60 and you're ready to protect your vision, boost your focus, and maybe even turn back the clock on how your eyes feel, this video is for you. Because today we're diving into the top 6 healthy fats that keep your eyes strong and clear, naturally. From the omega-3s hiding in wild salmon, to the liquid gold of olive oil, to the creamy power of avocados, the crunch of walnuts and almonds, the quiet strength of tiny seeds, and yes, even the golden glow of the humble egg yolk. You'll be surprised how simple it is to protect your sight with the right foods. But before we get into the good stuff, do me one small favor. Hit that like button, share this video with a friend who could use it, and don't forget to subscribe. It helps us bring you more of these real, science-backed health tips designed for people who refuse to let age slow them down. Because here's the truth, your eyesight doesn't have to fade with age. The right foods can sharpen your focus, brighten your world, and help you see life's most beautiful moments, crystal clear. Ready to find out which 6 fats could keep your eyes young for years to come? Let's get started. The powerhouse of vision, omega-3 from fatty fish. When it comes to protecting your vision after 60, no nutrient is more powerful than omega-3 fatty acids, especially 2 types called DHA and EPA. DHA, or docosahexaenoic acid, makes up nearly 60% of the structural fat in the retina. In simple terms, more than half of what keeps your retina functioning properly is built from this one type of fat. Think of DHA as the oil that keeps your car engine running smoothly. Without enough of it, the parts start to grind, your vision blurs, your focus slows, and inflammation builds up quietly over time. As we age, our bodies become less efficient at processing and absorbing these essential fats. Even if you eat healthy, your eyes may not be getting enough of what they need. That's one reason why dry eyes, poor night vision, and age-related macular degeneration, AMD, become so common after 60. The National Eye Institute estimates that over 11 million Americans are currently living with some form of macular degeneration, a number expected to double by 2050. But research consistently shows that people who regularly consume omega-3 have a significantly lower risk. A 2019 study in JAMA Ophthalmology followed over 38,000 adults for nearly 15 years and found that those who ate fatty fish twice a week had about a 30% lower risk of advanced AMD. Another study from Harvard showed that DHA supplements slowed the rate of retinal aging in adults over 65. These aren't miracle claims. They are decades of real science proving that food truly can act as medicine for your eyes. DHA does far more than simply build the retina. It protects it. It calms inflammation, keeps blood vessels flexible, and supports the health of photoreceptor cells, the tiny light sensors that allow you to see color, movement, and detail. When these cells die off, clarity fades. A review in Nutrients Journal showed that omega-3s can even extend the lifespan of these retinal cells by nearly 30%. I've seen this firsthand in my practice. One of my patients, Margaret, was 72 and loved her crossword puzzles. Over the course of a year, she noticed the small print getting blurrier, even with new glasses. Her diet was low in fish, so we added wild salmon and sardines twice a week, baked instead of fried. 6 weeks later, her eyes no longer felt gritty, and by her next checkup, her optometrist confirmed her tear film had normalized. She told me she could finally read her morning paper without squinting. Stories like hers are common. Patients who add omega-3s often see improvements in comfort, clarity, and even night vision. It's also worth noting that your retina is part of your brain. DHA is the dominant fat in both. That's why a Harvard study found that older adults who consumed the most omega-3 had not only better eyesight, but also a 26% lower risk of cognitive decline. Protecting your vision, it turns out, also means protecting your mind. So what can you do right now? Aim for at least 2 servings of fatty fish every week. salmon, sardines, trout, herring, or mackerel. Bake or grill them instead of frying. Choose wild-caught fish whenever possible, since they contain more omega-3s and fewer pollutants. If you can't stand the taste of fish, high-quality fish oil or algal oil supplements are great alternatives, especially for vegetarians. Try pairing your fish with colorful vegetables or leafy greens. The antioxidants help your body absorb and stabilize those delicate fats. And remember, balance matters. Most Americans eat 15 to 20 times more omega-6 fats from processed seed oils and fried foods than omega-3s. Reducing fried foods and using olive oil instead can restore the balance your eyes need. I think often of my father, a Navy man who lived to 92 and never wore glasses. Every Friday he cooked sardines in tomato sauce. When I asked him his secret, he said, "I just eat what's real." Only years later did I realize that his simple meals had been protecting his eyes all along. Omega-3s aren't a quick fix, they're a foundation. They keep the connection between your brain and your eyes strong, reduce silent inflammation, and help preserve the clarity that lets you fully experience the world. So the next time you plan dinner, ask yourself one small question. Have I given my eyes their dose of oil today? The liquid gold, extra virgin olive oil. If DHA is the oil for your retina, olive oil is the shield for your blood vessels. Extra virgin olive oil, often called liquid gold, is loaded with monounsaturated fats and antioxidants like olecanthal, a natural compound that works much like ibuprofen by calming inflammation, but without the side effects. Inflammation in the tiny capillaries that feed the retina is one of the most silent and destructive threats to eye health. When those vessels stiffen or clog, oxygen and nutrients can't reach your eyes properly, leading to damage that sometimes can't be reversed. Olive oil helps keep them flexible, open, and nourished, protecting the delicate tissues that let you see clearly every day. The science behind olive oil's power is solid. The famous Predimed study from Spain followed more than 7,000 older adults for years, and found that those who ate a Mediterranean diet rich in olive oil had a 48% lower risk of developing advanced macular degeneration. Another study from Harvard showed that people who replaced just 1 tablespoon of butter per day with olive oil reduced their risk of heart disease by nearly 14%. Why does that matter for your vision? Because your eyes depend on healthy circulation. When your arteries are open and elastic, every cell in your eyes, from the retina to the optic nerve, gets the nutrients and oxygen it needs to stay sharp. I remember meeting an 80-year-old woman in Santorini who had never worn glasses a day in her life. Her eyesight was still remarkable. Every morning she ate a simple breakfast of tomatoes, cucumbers, and a drizzle of olive oil with sea salt. No supplements, no magic pills, just real food. When we looked at her blood work, it told the story. Clean arteries, balanced cholesterol, and almost no inflammation. Her body was aging, yes, but her blood vessels and her vision were decades younger than her age suggested. Closer to home, one of my patients, Robert, a retired music teacher, struggled with early signs of macular degeneration. I asked him to make one small change. Swap his butter for olive oil. 6 months later, his cholesterol dropped, his blood pressure improved, and his eye doctor reported slower disease progression. Robert told me, "Doc, my vision feels steadier. I don't strain to read the piano sheet anymore." That's what small, consistent choices can do. Olive oil's benefits go beyond the eyes. It's good for your brain, too. Both organs depend on strong, healthy blood vessels and reduced inflammation. Studies from the University of Navarra found that people who consumed olive oil regularly had significantly fewer age-related vision problems and better cognitive performance. Scientists now believe the polyphenols in olive oil protect the brain and the retina in similar ways, improving both mental clarity and visual focus. So how can you make olive oil part of your daily routine? Replace butter or margarine with extra virgin olive oil. Use it raw whenever possible on salads, steamed vegetables, soups, or even drizzled over whole grain bread. Heating it too much can destroy some of its antioxidants, so gentle cooking is best. Always choose high-quality extra virgin olive oil, cold-pressed and stored in a dark glass bottle. Cheap, refined oils lose much of their nutritional value and protective properties. If you've never thought of olive oil as medicine, maybe it's time to start. It's one of the simplest, most natural ways to protect your vision and overall health as you age. Ask yourself this: when was the last time you used olive oil not just for taste, but for your long-term well-being? In my 4 decades as a physician, I've learned that prevention isn't complicated, it's consistent. A spoonful of olive oil a day might not seem like much, but over the years, it can mean the difference between watching the sunset with clear eyes or through a haze. Sometimes, the most powerful medicine is already sitting in your kitchen. The forgotten hero, avocados. When most people think of avocados, they think heart health, but your eyes love them just as much. This creamy fruit is packed with lutein and zeaxanthin, two powerful antioxidants that concentrate in the macula, the small area of the retina responsible for sharp, central vision. Think of your macula as your camera lens, and these nutrients as its built-in sunscreen. They help filter out harmful blue light from screens and sunlight, reducing the damage that leads to age-related vision problems. According to the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition, seniors who consume at least 6 milligrams of lutein a day have a 43% lower risk of developing macular degeneration. One avocado contains about 20 milligrams, more than 3 times what your body needs daily. The healthy monounsaturated fats in avocados make them even more powerful. These fats don't just protect your heart, they help your body absorb lutein, zeaxanthin, and other fat-soluble nutrients from the foods you eat. So when you enjoy a salad with spinach, kale, or broccoli, pairing it with avocado helps your body use those nutrients more efficiently. In fact, a 2017 study from Tufts University found that older adults who ate one avocado every day for 6 months showed a significant increase in macular pigment density, a direct sign that their eyes were better protected against light and oxidative stress. These same participants also experienced improvements in memory and cognitive performance, showing just how connected your brain and your eyes really are. Avocados are also rich in vitamin E, another antioxidant that helps prevent the fatty tissues in your eyes from oxidative damage. Research from the age-related eye disease study ARDS showed that people with higher vitamin E intake had slower progression of macular degeneration. Together, the combination of lutein, zeaxanthin, and vitamin E makes avocado one of the most complete foods for aging eyes. I've seen these benefits firsthand in my patients. One of them, Mr. Daniels, age 75, told me his grandson got him hooked on avocado toast. He laughed that he felt too old for hipster food, but within a few weeks, he noticed that his eyes didn't burn or water as much during his evening TV time. His eye doctor later confirmed that his tear stability had improved, a sign that the anti-inflammatory fats in avocado were helping his eyes stay hydrated. Another patient, Elaine, 68, struggled with dry eyes and light sensitivity. She started adding half an avocado to her lunch salads every day and blended the other half into a smoothie with spinach and Greek yogurt. 2 months later, her symptoms had eased, and she told me her eyes felt moist from the inside out. Science continues to back up what I've seen in the exam room. A 2019 review in the Nutrients Journal found that people with higher lutein levels performed better on visual attention and memory tests, suggesting that the same nutrients that protect the retina also enhance brain function. The link makes sense. The retina and the brain share similar cell structures and rely on the same fatty acids and antioxidants for protection. Eating foods like avocado helps both organs stay sharp, coordinated, and resilient against aging. If you're wondering how to add avocados into your diet, the options are endless. Spread them on whole grain toast, blend them into smoothies, mash them into guacamole, or toss slices into a colorful salad. Pair them with foods rich in color, spinach, red peppers, carrots, to maximize nutrient absorption. Don't be afraid of their calories. Research shows that regular avocado eaters tend to have healthier body weights, better cholesterol profiles, and lower inflammation overall. So ask yourself this: when was the last time you ate something for your eyes? Most people focus on protecting their hearts but forget that their eyes rely on the same healthy fats. After decades of caring for older patients, I can tell you that good vision isn't just about avoiding disease, it's about feeding your body the right way. A simple habit like eating half an avocado a day can make a lasting difference in how clearly you see the world around you. Sometimes, the most powerful medicine doesn't come in a bottle, it comes on a piece of toast. The crunchy brain boosters, walnuts and almonds. Nuts are nature's multivitamin. They're packed with healthy fats, vitamin E, and minerals that protect not just your heart and brain, but also your eyes. Among all nuts, walnuts and almonds are the true standouts when it comes to supporting vision as you age. Vitamin E in particular plays a major role in protecting the retina from oxidative damage. It's like rust-proofing your eyes from the inside. Over time, light exposure and free radicals can wear down the sensitive tissues in your eyes, but vitamin E helps stop that process before it starts. In one study by the National Eye Institute, participants with higher vitamin E intake had a 25% slower progression of age-related macular degeneration, AMD. Another major clinical trial, the age-related eye disease study, found that a combination of vitamin E, vitamin C, zinc, and beta-carotene could reduce the risk of advanced AMD by as much as 25%. Walnuts are especially powerful because they are rich in alpha-linolenic acid, or ALA, a plant-based omega-3 fatty acid that partially converts into DHA, the same essential fat that supports your retina and brain. ALA helps reduce inflammation and keeps the tiny blood vessels in your eyes flexible, improving circulation and oxygen delivery. Studies published in the Journal of Nutrition, Health and Aging have shown that older adults who eat walnuts regularly maintain better cognitive performance and have slower age-related decline. Another study from Nutrients Journal found that daily walnut intake improves endothelial function, the health of the inner lining of blood vessels, which is vital for nourishing the eyes. Almonds bring their own benefits to the table. Just 1 ounce, about 23 almonds, provides nearly half of your daily vitamin E needs, plus magnesium, which helps blood vessels relax and supports steady circulation to the eyes. Healthy circulation ensures that the retina receives enough oxygen and nutrients to function well. Magnesium also helps regulate eye pressure, lowering the risk of glaucoma. Harvard researchers found that people who ate nuts at least 5 times per week had a 35% lower risk of chronic inflammation-related diseases, which are often the root cause of eye problems, cognitive decline, and heart disease. I've seen the difference these simple foods can make. When I turned 66, I began eating a small handful of walnuts every afternoon. Within a few weeks, I noticed fewer floaters in my vision and steadier eye pressure during checkups. My energy levels also stayed consistent throughout long clinic hours. One of my patients, a 70-year-old retired teacher, added almonds and walnuts to her morning oatmeal and told me that her eyes no longer felt tired or dry after reading for hours. Her ophthalmologist later confirmed that her tear film stability had improved, a small but meaningful sign that her eyes were healthier. These aren't isolated stories. Large-scale studies on the Mediterranean diet, such as the Predimed study in Spain, have shown that people who eat nuts several times per week enjoy a 39% lower risk of cardiovascular disease and maintain sharper brain and eye function as they age. Healthy fats and antioxidants in nuts help lower inflammation and oxidative stress throughout the body, protecting the delicate capillaries that supply your retina. In regions like Greece and Italy, where nuts and olive oil are dietary staples, older adults often maintain excellent vision and mental clarity well into their 80s and 90s. If you want to protect your vision, start with something simple, a handful of walnuts or almonds every day. Add them to yogurt, salads, or oatmeal, or keep a small bag with you for an easy snack. Choose unsalted, raw, or dry roasted nuts to preserve their oils and nutrients. If chewing is difficult, soak them overnight to soften the texture without losing their benefits. Don't be afraid of the fat content. These are the kinds of fats your body needs. They support brain health, stabilize blood sugar, and help maintain a healthy weight by keeping you satisfied longer. So let me ask you, when was the last time you reached for a handful of nuts instead of something processed? That small choice might not seem like much, but over time it can mean sharper vision, steadier energy, and a healthier mind. After 4 decades in medicine, I've learned that longevity isn't built on big leaps, it's built on daily habits. Walnuts and almonds may look like simple snacks, but they're 2 of the most powerful tools you have to protect your eyes, your brain, and your future. The seeds of longevity, chia, flax, and hemp seeds. Here's a fact that surprises most people. A single tablespoon of ground flaxseed contains more omega-3 fatty acids than a full serving of salmon. These tiny seeds may not look like much, but they're loaded with nutrients that can make a big difference for your eyes. The plant-based omega-3s in chia, flax, and hemp seeds, known as ALA, or alpha-linolenic acid, aren't as potent as the DHA found in fish, but they still help reduce inflammation and keep your blood vessels flexible and healthy. That's essential for maintaining strong circulation to the retina, the part of your eye responsible for clear, focused vision. Healthy blood flow means more oxygen and nutrients reaching the cells that allow you to see detail, color, and movement. Science continues to back up the power of these seeds. A study published in Investigative Ophthalmology and Visual Science found that omega-3 fatty acids helped increase tear production and reduced symptoms of dry eye disease by as much as 38%. Another trial in the British Journal of Nutrition showed that people who added flaxseed oil to their daily diets reported less eye redness, irritation, and burning after just 8 weeks. Omega-3s work by supporting the meibomian glands, tiny oil-producing glands in your eyelids that keep your eyes lubricated. When these glands are healthy, your tears don't evaporate too quickly, so your eyes stay comfortable and your vision remains clear throughout the day. Dry eye is more than a minor irritation. It's one of the most common causes of blurry vision in older adults. Many people chalk it up to aging, but often it's the result of missing nutrients. I like to tell my patients that healthy fats are like oiling a door hinge. They keep everything moving smoothly. Chia, flax, and hemp seeds literally help lubricate your eyes from within. Flax seeds in particular are packed with ALA and lignans, plant compounds that reduce inflammation and support hormonal balance, especially helpful for postmenopausal women who often experience worsening dry eyes. Chia seeds carry a similar nutrient profile but also provide zinc, a mineral critical for night vision. Because they absorb up to 10 times their weight in water, they also help hydrate your body from the inside out. Hemp seeds bring something unique, gamma-linolenic acid, or GLA, another anti-inflammatory fat that's been shown to reduce eye surface irritation and support tear production. I've seen the difference firsthand. One of my patients, Carol, age 69, had struggled with dry, itchy eyes for years. Eye drops gave her only temporary relief. I suggested she start adding 1 tablespoon of ground flaxseed and a teaspoon of hemp seeds to her morning oatmeal. Within a month, she told me her eyes felt alive again. Her optometrist later confirmed measurable improvement in her tear film stability. Another patient, Mr. Johnson, 74, replaced his sugary cereal with chia pudding made with almond milk and a drizzle of honey. 3 weeks later, he said his eyes felt less strained after reading and using his tablet. Sometimes, it's not about adding new medications, it's about giving your body what it's missing. The best part about these seeds is how easy they are to use. Add 1 or 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed or chia seeds to your breakfast. Mix them into yogurt, oatmeal, or smoothies. Grind flaxseed fresh when you can, since whole seeds often pass through your system undigested. Sprinkle hemp seeds over salads, soups, or roasted vegetables for a mild, nutty flavor. You can even combine all 3 into a simple longevity mix and store it in the fridge for easy use. Here's something to think about. When was the last time you added real omega-3s to your day, not from a pill, but from actual food? Seeds like chia, flax, and hemp provide not only omega-3, but also fiber, protein, and antioxidants that work together to protect your heart, brain, and eyes. In one study from the Journal of the American College of Nutrition, adults who consumed flaxseed daily saw an average drop of 10 points in systolic blood pressure, improving overall circulation, including the tiny vessels that feed the eyes. Good circulation means clearer vision and healthier tissues, plain and simple. After 40 years of working with patients, I've learned that small, consistent habits make the biggest impact. These seeds might be tiny, but their benefits are enormous. They help calm inflammation, nourish your eyes, and keep your body balanced from the inside out. A spoonful or 2 each day can be enough to protect your sight, your brain, and your overall health. The key is consistency. Nature has already given us the tools for longevity. It's up to us to use them. The golden secret: egg yolks. For years, eggs were unfairly blamed for raising cholesterol, leading many people, especially older adults, to avoid them. But science now shows that the yolk, once criticized, is actually one of the most eye-nourishing foods you can eat. Each yolk is packed with lutein, zeaxanthin, omega-3s, vitamin D, and choline, a perfect mix of nutrients that protect the retina, filter blue light, and support brain function. The fats in yolks make these antioxidants easier for your body to absorb, helping them reach the retina more effectively than those from plant sources. Lutein and zeaxanthin, the pigments that give yolks their golden color, act like internal sunglasses, shielding your eyes from oxidative stress and harmful light. A study published in the Journal of Nutrition found that eating 1 egg daily for just 5 weeks increased blood levels of these antioxidants, without raising LDL cholesterol. Another 2020 Australian study showed that adults over 60 who ate 5 to 6 eggs per week had a 46% lower risk of developing advanced macular degeneration. The benefits go beyond the eyes. Research also links moderate egg consumption to sharper memory and better focus, especially in older adults. Egg yolks are also a natural source of vitamin D, which helps control inflammation and supports healthy immune and retinal function. Many seniors are low in vitamin D, and just a few eggs a week can help fill that gap. Choline, another nutrient in yolks, helps maintain strong communication between the eyes and the brain, improving reaction time and clarity. I've seen these results firsthand. One of my patients, Mrs. Harper, 69, had avoided eggs for years because of cholesterol fears. When we added 2 whole eggs every other day, cooked in olive oil, her HDL, the good cholesterol, rose, her LDL stayed stable, and her eyesight improved. Another patient, George, 72, had been eating only egg whites. When he switched to whole eggs, preferably pasture-raised or omega-3 enriched, he noticed less eye strain and clearer night vision within 2 months. Not all eggs are equal, though. Pasture-raised and omega-3 enriched eggs contain up to 3 times more lutein, vitamin D, and healthy fats than conventional eggs. The darker the yolk, the richer the nutrition. And modern research has shown that for most people, eating up to 7 eggs per week does not increase heart disease risk. In fact, eggs help raise protective HDL cholesterol and reduce inflammation. To get the most from your eggs, cook them gently, poached, soft-boiled, or scrambled over low heat to preserve their nutrients. Pair them with colorful vegetables like spinach, tomatoes, or red peppers to boost antioxidant absorption, and use olive oil instead of butter for cooking. Even a few eggs a week can make a real difference for your eyes and overall health. So the next time you crack an egg, don't skip the yolk. It's where all the good stuff is. Simple, affordable, and packed with powerful nutrients, egg yolks are one of nature's best tools for keeping your vision strong and your mind sharp. We've just uncovered the 6 incredible healthy fats that can keep your eyes strong, sharp, and clear, no matter your age. From omega-3s in fatty fish that protect your retina, to the liquid gold of olive oil that nourishes your blood vessels, to the creamy goodness of avocados, the crunchy strength of walnuts and almonds, the tiny but powerful chia, flax, and hemp seeds, and finally, the golden secret hiding in the humble egg yolk. Each of these foods is proof that real nourishment comes from nature, not a pill. These are simple, everyday foods that work quietly but powerfully to protect your vision, improve blood flow, and reduce the inflammation that slowly steals clarity from your eyes. But more than that, they remind us that good health isn't about chasing the next trend, it's about going back to basics. Eating whole, real foods that fuel your body and give you the gift of clear sight for years to come. So, before you move on with your day, ask yourself this. What's one small change you can make today to take better care of your eyes? Maybe it's swapping margarine for olive oil, adding salmon to dinner twice a week, or starting your mornings with a sprinkle of chia or flaxseed. Every choice you make adds up, and your eyes will thank you for it. If this video opened your eyes, literally or figuratively, don't forget to hit the like button, share it with someone who deserves to see life more clearly, and subscribe to the channel. It helps us continue creating honest, science-backed content that supports your health, energy, and longevity. And be sure to turn on the notification bell so you never miss what's coming next. Because we've got plenty more simple, practical ways to help you live stronger, see brighter, and feel your best at every age. Thank you so much for watching. Take care of your eyes, take care of your health, and we'll see you in the next video.